Okay, so let's take a look at the graphs for positive and negative externalities. First, let's start with a negative externality graph, and we'll start with the market for cigarettes. So here we can see the supply and the demand curve for cigarettes and the Q free market as indicated down here at the bottom of the graph for the free market quantity of cigarettes exchanged. Cigarettes are a classic example of a negative externality because the person who buys the cigarettes and smokes the cigarettes, well, they might know that the cigarettes are bad for them or whatever, but they're not taking into consideration the negative health effects that the secondhand smoke from their cigarettes have when they're making their decision to purchase and smoke the cigarettes. So the private cost, the cost to the individual of smoking those cigarettes, is actually lower than the cost to everyone, including the individual who's smoking. The cost to everyone would be known as the marginal social cost. So instead of the marginal private cost, the marginal social cost. In a negative externality graph, you're always going to see two cost curves. Remember, the supply curve here is the cost curve, so the marginal social cost is above the marginal private cost. An easy way to remember the difference between a negative externality graph and a positive externality graph is that there are two cost curves, so it's double costly, and that's bad. Things that are extra costly are bad. So a negative externality has two cost curves. So the optimal quantity, the socially optimal quantity, is something less than the free market quantity because there is a vertical distance here between the two supply curves, the marginal private cost and the marginal social cost. That vertical distance indicates the dollar amount of the negative externality. Here it is kind of illustrated between those two yellow points. Right? So if you were going to tax the cigarette producer or the cigarette smoker or whoever, in this case, you would want to make the per unit tax equal to that negative externality, that vertical distance between the marginal private cost and the marginal social cost. This market, without any kind of regulation, cigarettes are over-allocated. So too much of society's scarce resources are used on making and then consuming cigarettes. So there's taxing. The solution could be a tax. And if you tax, you would shift the supply curve in. So once you shift the supply curve in, I know we've talked about a tax shifting the supply curve up. In this case, we can talk about it shifting the supply curve in. It doesn't really matter. Just so long as you get the marginal social cost equal to the marginal private cost, then we'll have the optimal quantity exchanged in the market. To take a look at the positive externality graph, let's use an example of flu shots. Right? So I might get a flu shot because I don't want to get the flu, but me not getting the flu decreases the chances of everybody else around me decreases the chance of everybody else around me from getting the flu. So there's a benefit to other people that I'm not weighing when I make my decision to buy my flu shot. So again, here we see double benefit curves. So something that has a double benefit is obviously positive. In this case, though, the marginal social benefit is to the right of the marginal private benefit. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to get the marginal private benefit out there to the marginal social benefit. So the free market quantity is too low. There's an under allocation of resources to the flu shot market or to any market where a positive externality exists. The amount of the positive externality, the amount of the positive externality is the vertical distance between the two benefit curves. So in this case, we might see a subsidy in order to shift that benefit curve out by the right amount. And the subsidy would be that vertical distance between the two curves, the marginal private benefit and the marginal social benefit. Those are the graphs for positive and negative externalities. Remember, double cost, negative. Double benefit, positive.